pass those helmets real quick. We won't belabor this any longer, but like I said, if you got something chipping in, we're going to add to our 500, okay? And I'm going to turn it back to Trent. We'll go ahead and start with our induction.
So we're ready to get started here with the inductions now for the pioneers and legends. We induct into two categories, the pioneers being those folks that didn't directly race, but everything else that encompasses the sport, and the legends being the race car drivers. Every inductee gets a chance to give a speech, and they also have one or more individuals that give them their introduction and share some stories as well. So if this is your first time here, that's a little bit about how the program will work. We'll go back and forth between the pioneers and the legends all the way through the 10 inductees that you see on the stage with us here tonight. The opening inductee this year is Mike Edwards, and to give his introduction is another Ozarks Racing Hall of Famer, longtime promoter, Glen Mooneyham.
Thanks, Trenton. I'd like to say it's an honor to be here. I want to say congratulations to the class this year. Kind of takes me back to Monette, early days of I-44. This class we got on stage. I kind of want to have a race, you know. I can take Corky and Justin and Glenn and Les and get out here in the crowd and grab a couple of more, and I can get Carl Sifferman to sponsor it. And that give me a guest driver in Kenny Wallace. Yeah. Throw the farmer in back here. I get Mike Edwards to announce it. Mike Pickens, and if any of these guys had trouble, which I'm sure they would, I get Mike Pickens to either run the valves or set the carburetor. And then I got Kirby Arnold and Wendell Scranton to ride about it. Glory days of Monette, loved it. Okay, I'm here to talk about Mike Edwards. Mike Edwards, wow, what a guy. Started his deal, just like a lot of the rest of us here, Fairgrounds Speedway, watching Phillips and Crane and Kindig and Freebie and Bud McKee and all them guys. But I think he also might have done something a little different. He might have listened to Max Speak and Bob Brown and Dan Hutton, three of the best to ever get behind the microphone. Got his first job announcing down at 65 Raceway Park for Ferris and Judy Collier. And it went on from there. Ended up announcing in Monette, Bolivar, the Fairgrounds, I-44. Had a chance to be the initial announcer at West Plains Speedway and just decided maybe it's a little too far to drive. A little about Mike when he announced. There were no headphones, there were no cell phones. The only communication at most of the tracks in was a light switch and a bulb. The bulb was on the flag stand, the light switch said 1 lap to go. So all the employees, they had to dig in and do it. As Mike would say, you kind of had to wing it. This guy was as good as any. How many guys here tonight remember the first time when you drive up to the pit gate, one of the first people you see was the track announcer, right? They had to get back to him. We had late model, sportsman, street stock. Pre-modified days when Mike started announcing for me. So he had to know if you're driving a Ford or a Chevy or a Dodge or whatever, if you're running a Mustang, Camaro, if you're running a 355 or a 409 big block Chevy. Announcers were very, very important in those days. Because, hey, if we had a yellow flag and we had downtime, he couldn't just push a button and hit some music or push this button and maybe play a commercial. He had to fill in the dead time. And I promise you this guy could do it as good as anybody. One of the things I remember, it's just a small deal, but a good announcer at a racetrack. And back at those days in Monette, records. Now all us track owners you have to get your own record, you gotta pay them. We got them furnished. Guys would bring the record to the racetrack if they got a little publicity. And who's the main man to take care of that? The announcer. Nobody was any better than Mike Edwards filling in the dead time, telling jokes and all the things. And I mean, I've heard him a million times say, well, we got a rep down there in 3 and 4. Here comes Blackie. Blackie Barton. Blackie brought his record my racetrack year after year and never charged me a dime. We took care of him. I didn't take care of him. Mike took care of him. Those were the things in those days. After 65 Raceway Park, we got lucky. We got Mike to come and announce at Monet. So, and along with him came Renee. They scored if they weren't announcing. If they didn't have scores, they'd score for me. They'd do whatever I asked them to do. And they were really good at it. Good family guy. Mike always brought his family with him, worked hard. Okay, we got some bonuses. We got a lot of bonuses when we hired Mike Edwards. We got the morning man, KTTS radio. #1 station, Springfield Market. #1 station, all of Southwest Missouri. We got the morning man. Soon after he started, he became sports director. Here's a name from the past, Dan O'Day. Dan O gave it up, gave it to Mike. Mike took it and ran with it. He also had to have a racing show on every day, 4:45 p.m. on KTTS. Hey people, this is drive time. 4 to 6 p.m. is drive time. That's when radios do their best. We had Mike Edwards on the radio doing the racing show. And also, and there's something else I'll get to here in a minute, he was a pretty good friend of Kurt Brown. And Kurt was the general manager of KTTS at the time. So what did we get for all that? Okay, sports, 1/4 the hour. How many people heard KTTS sports in the day, 1/4 the hour? Absolutely, on the radio. He gave up not only Monette, Bolivar, Branson, Springfield was still around a little bit at the time, I-44. If you didn't make the races, if you couldn't make it, I guarantee you, you turned the radio on and you listened to Mike Edwards 1/4 the hour. You just did, that's just the way it was. And the other thing, drivers. We all know drivers don't have egos. How many drivers here, if you had a good night at Monette or Bolivar, you had a good night, on the way home, first thing you did, turn the radio on so you'd hear your name, right? Huh? Didn't you, Kenneth? Yeah, you won the feature at Monette. And you get in your car and you head home and say, man, I got to get the radio on because Mike's going to be on there and I won the feature. And here's another thing. It wasn't just late models. He gave street stocks, he gave sportsmen, and he gave late model results. You could win a heat race in the street stock class and get your name on the PA system. Not the PA, on the radio. And he played it not only all night, played till about noon the next day, if I remember. This guy was responsible for all that. This guy's the one who made it happen. Had the racing show at 4:45, loved it. Not one time when he called me did I turn down a chance to be on this racing show. Big audience, thing to be. He didn't have to do this. He could have done stick and ball sports. He could have done the Cardinals, Royals, blah, blah, etc. Everybody had stick and ball sports, but only Mike carried the racing. Did it year after year after year on his show. Another thing, summer would wear on and you go, Randy, we got to go in, we got to talk to Kurt Brown. And he'd get me an appointment. For years, the 4-state championship. I think this year will be number 48 or 49. But this guy was a big reason behind it. And he'd set me up an appointment. I go in, visit with Kurt Brown, and they did unbelievable for our speedway, for the advertising and the effort they put behind it. I don't think this would have happened if Mike would have said, well, the crowds are kind of yucky at Monette, the crowds are down in Lebanon, and Bolivar's struggling. You know, this was the day of big weekly shows. I mean, I think today we have big specials, but we don't have the weekly shows what we had in that day. And a lot of it was due to this gentleman sitting here on my left. I don't know what else to say other than I think, well, I'll tell you one other thing I was going to do about being the morning man. I could have the races at Monette, get up on Monday morning. Mike's on the air from 5 to 9. And by the way, we had to be done at 10 o'clock because he reminded me every week that he had to be on the air at 5 in the morning, right? But he'd talk about the races. We had a guy in the media who talked about the races. He would say, man, you should have seen that feature. You should have seen Essary and Chisholm getting after it at Monette, or wow, that's a great race at Bolivar Saturday night. We don't have that anymore. We got cell phones, we got all this media, and I guess it's good, but you know, everything Mike put out was positive. We had positive influence on our sport. After all that, and he helped with the 4th state championship, and by the way, if you remember that day, it was more known as the KTTS race instead of the 4th state championship. It's because this guy sitting here on my left. He then we started the MLRA in 1989, and Mike was my choice, and he was our first announcer. And not bragging, we kind of Kenneth and I started, we kind of hit the ground running. And we had 18 events, and we were going to do 6 weekends, 3 to a weekend. So we had a nice schedule: Wichita, Fort Smith, Muskogee. And by the way, this guy's on the radio all the time talking about this new dirt track series. So I had to call him. I said, Mike, you know, we had that one opening there in May, and I said, I filled that event. He said, where are you going? I go, Pocahontas, Arkansas. He goes, where in the hell's Pocahontas, Arkansas? And I go, I don't know, but that's where we're going. And we got down there, and I'm telling you, Mike's he's probably a little bigger than he was now. They had this little old bitty scoring tower. And if you take a crew on the road, first track, well, the tech guys, they get out and they try to find a place to have the tech area. And Dwayne Johnson, my flagman, he goes over and looks at the flag stand, and it's not much at all. Matter of fact, he said, they didn't even have the light switch. They had little marbles on a like a half moon rope. Never let Mike or Dwayne flip a marble over till we got to 40, right? So anyway, Dwayne comes up before the race. He said, Randy, have you looked at that tower over there that Mike and Kevin Starker was my scorer? He said, have you looked at that tower them guys got to get in? And I said, no, I hadn't. I looked over there, and they're just kind of staring at it. He said, you going to go over there? And I said, no, they're already pissed off. No need me go there. It had a ladder like a treehouse ladder to get this, and it wasn't very big at all. But anyway, made it work. And so anyway, this guy, he did a heck of a job for me. I always said what Kirby Arnold and Lyndall Scranton did in print, Mike Edwards did in radio. He's the only one of his kind, what I think. And when I talk about Bob Brown and Max Speak and Dan Hutton, and this guy listened to him when he was a kid here at the fairgrounds in Bolivar, I'm telling you, he was right there. Long overdue and well-deserved, one of the best announcers we've ever seen, Mr. Mike Edwards.
Wow. Thank you, Randy. That was quite an introduction, and I really do appreciate that. I want to thank the committee for giving me this opportunity. I'm truly blessed to have been given the God-given talent to be a race announcer. Spent a lot of years in the radio business and be able to promote a sport that I really love. I'm very honored to be going into as a pioneer and into the Hall of Fame here with some very good drivers and other individuals involved in racing. I was a race fan before I started being a race announcer. As a matter of fact, if you went on a date with me on a Friday night, you were going to go here to the Fairgrounds Speedway and you're eating a corn dog for dinner. And it was going to have mustard on it. And I was going to eat 2. So I spent a lot of Friday nights out here. I sat on the front row, always got one of those boxes on the front row, and we watched races. And you know, every Friday night this is the place to be when I was in high school. We all came to the races. And then I got interested in going around and watching drivers like Larry Phillips and others. And we drove to Rolla, the I-70, to wherever there was a race, and we went and watched them race. So I was a big fan. So when I got into radio and the opportunity to do sports and then do the At the Track show that Randy was telling you about, it was a dream come true. These were drivers that I got to watch as a huge fan, and then all of a sudden I got to be a part of them. I got to meet them. I got to know them. Got to realize who they were. Got a chance to really rub elbows with some people that I truly respected and looked up to. So it became a real dream come true to be able to realize something like this. And not many people get an opportunity to do that, but we did. And I did get a chance to meet a lot of my idols, a lot of drivers that I watched race for years, and got to announce the races and got to see them have great success. It was a great time. It was a super time in my life, and being in here tonight with a lot of you people, a lot of familiar faces, has been a true blessing, and I appreciate it. My family is here tonight. Not only my son, Christopher came to many, many races. Randy, I think he was up in that booth in Pocahontas. Were you not? I believe. I do know they had a great barbecue place in Pocahontas, Arkansas, and it is a dirt spot in the road, but we did go to that racetrack. But Chris came with me to a lot of races, and he's the one that kept me awake driving home a lot of the times. Obviously, my wife, who also judged, and a lot of times she was sitting next to me judging while I was announcing at Monette. We made it a family affair, and quite honestly, the money I made doing it was money that we needed. It was a great blessing for us. And then my daughters, of course, Alyssa used to come with Renee to some of the races, the West Plains especially, and literally I'd be inside announcing and she'd be sitting out in our van with Alyssa, because she was just a little one. And Alyssa didn't come in, but they always came with me and were always alongside. Brooke, a little bit younger, she never got to experience the racing world quite like the rest of them did, but she is here tonight as well, along with her husband Cleve, Alyssa with her husband Chris, and my grandson Mason, who is here seeing racing stuff for the first time in his life. He's 8 months old. He is big time into wheels. So tonight he's in kind of hog heaven with all the cars around. He's been able to go around and see all the cars. So thank you all for coming tonight. One thing I will say, racing, the cool part about racing is it's American. It's all about America, man. It's about the United States. It's just so right here. And everyone that's here tonight, keep it going. Work hard to keep this sport as alive as it is, and the committee that does this reunion, it's fantastic. Well, I just can't tell you enough how impressed I am with what a great job they've done, this entire setup. And I am truly, truly honored to be inducted as a pioneer and represent this sport for something that God gave me the talent to do. Thank you all very much, and God bless you all.